And welcome to Walt Disney's private apartment. Come on in and take a seat. Welcome to Walt Disney's private apartment. Come on in. Welcome to Walt Disney's private apartment. Please watch your step. Welcome to Walt Disney's private apartment. Please watch your step. Please watch your step. Welcome to Walt Disney's private apartment. So how many first-timers do we have here at Walt Disney's private apartment? How many of you are excited to be in Walt Disney's private apartment? Absolutely. That is the response that we'd like to have. And I'd just like to take another moment to welcome you to Walt Disney's private apartment, one of the most exclusive places in the entire Walt Disney Company. And we're so honored to have all of you here in this very private space. One of the first things that you'll notice is that it's pretty small. It's about 500 square feet. And this is about the large portion of the apartment that you see here. It was helped designed by the set decorator Emil Curry, and Courtney will share a little bit more about him as you walk down Main Street, USA. But he was one of our interior set decorators, and he designed sets for Mary Poppins and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Now when he worked on this apartment, you'll notice that even though it was built in the 1950s, it has that exact same feeling of that Victorian era, just like it does on Main Street, USA. And this was never intended to open to the public, but Walt Disney knew that those specific details were exactly what's going to make the Disney theme park unique and unlike anywhere else in the entire world. So from here, you'll see all of those deep roses, a theme that Lillian personally loved. As you can see it in the carpet, you might be able to see it etched in some of the chairs, as well as some of the teacups that you might see all scattered throughout the apartment, making this a very intimate and private spot. You'll also notice that there aren't any beds, and believe it or not, these two are fold-out couches that pull out into twin beds, so therefore they'd be able to sleep here. Lillian slept on this bed right here, and Walt Disney slept right here. And originally you would know the difference between the two because they had their mothers actually on the portraits directly above. Those have since been donated to the Disney family, but we still have some pictures that are very near and dear to the entire Walt Disney Company. The first one I'd like to share with you is going to be on right here, Walt Disney staying on Main Street, USA. He's staying underneath the Elias Contracting Company window, and in just a few minutes, Courtney will show you right where that's at, so you'll be able to see that. Right over here above Walt Disney's bed, you'll see him rehearsing for the opening day speech right here, just down here in Town Square. One of the first things he wanted to have here in his Mickey Mouse Park, as we say, was a railroad that encompassed the entire area. He then had a monorail, as well as had the horse-drawn and the horseless carriages. Now remember in the 1950s and 1960s, Walt Disney was a huge celebrity, and so many people wanted to be able to see him at his original Magic Kingdom. But he would be stopped for photographs and autographs very frequently, so it was sometimes difficult for him to navigate throughout the parks. So, being the creative entrepreneur that he is, there's a certain time of the day that has a large amount of people lying down the sides, perhaps a certain route. What do you think? The parade, right? So if you look at this portrait right here with his granddaughters, it's the holiday time. You can see with that, and you'll notice that he's going down the street, being able to wave at everyone just before the parade steps off, so that way they could see Walt Disney right here. In fact, he also sometimes liked to invite different celebrities and dignitaries along the way. And Julie Andrews recalls just before she was asked to sign to play the role of Mary Poppins, Walt Disney took her in the electric car, and she said that he was a twinkly person who was just simply ecstatic to see all of the people here. Now, another picture that we have here I'd like to direct your attention to is going to be right over here, and that's Lillian and Walt staged right in front of the castle. And again, one of the electric vehicles. Now, Walt Disney always wanted to make sure that Lillian would be comfortable because after all, this was her home as well. And here in his private apartment, he wanted to make sure she had special gifts as well. And so the first one I'd like to share with you is going to be right on the other side. It's going to be our Regina music box. Now what that was dates back all the way to the 1890s. They had large metal cylinders that would get lowered up or down into the actual box, and it would play chimes and different music. And they believed that the Regina was a very successful and didn't need to change very much. Well, Walt Disney once said we always had to keep moving forward, and the Edison decided that, well, they need to keep moving forward, and they developed the Edison Phonograph, as you can see right here, one of our other very rare collections. And rather than having that very large cylinders being rotated through that can only store about 6 of those per actual box, these had small wax cylinders, and therefore they can be rotated out. And we actually have about 26 of those original ones still in the apartment today that we keep as our collection. You might notice the Tom and Jerry set right there. Now, how many of you thought of the classic cartoon Cat and Mouse? A few people? Well, believe it or not, it was a Victorian time, the turn of the 19th century, Yuletide beverage that featured milk, sugars, and spirits that was served warm during the holiday season. So just in case they wanted to entertain any families or friends. Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to be able to see some other portions of it in just a moment. Ooh, and don't worry, ready for the Oz, all right? Don't worry, we'll rotate through it. We'll let everyone get a moment to see it. It is a large group, don't worry. But in here you can see some of the original china that Lillian had collected, as well as directly below it there is a grilled cheese maker. Remember though, even though Walt Disney was hugely successful, he was a very simple man, and sometimes some of his favorite treats were grilled cheese and cornbread and chili, and we still to this day serve chili on Main Street, USA in his honor. Now there's one last thing that I would like to direct your attention to before we conclude this area, and I'm sure several of you who have come into the park as guests before might have seen it in another way, and that is going to be the lamp that's directly behind us right here. Now, when Walt Disney was building Disneyland Park, and he spent several times after the park had opened, guests and customers would know that Walt Disney was here because that light would be on. In fact, it would be 4 o'clock in the morning and that light would be on, and customers, especially at that time, would know that Walt Disney was here and need to be on his best regards. Now, since Walt Disney's passing in 1966, we've kept that light on 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So all of our guests and all of our customers still know that right here, this is Walt Disney's original Magic Kingdom, and we keep his inspiration alive in all of us. And not only is it in our customers here, but it's also our guests, because our guests are what make our magic come in. In fact, our grandchild, one of Walt's grandchildren, Christopher, had said, you know, look at this place. He loved being able to come in here and spend the night at Disneyland without anyone here. And he would look at his father and say, this is a dream come true. And Walt would turn to him and say, wait till the people get here. That's when the magic really happens. In fact, it was opening day, July 17th, 1955, and Walt Disney was standing right here. And Sharon Baird, who was an original Musketeer, had the opportunity to be here in the apartment as the first guests who were being allowed into the park. And Walt Disney was standing right here with his hands behind his back, and he was looking out the window. And as he was looking, Sharon Baird had the opportunity to look and see that he had a lump in his throat and a tear fell down his face. And at her young age of 12, she didn't understand what that meant. But looking back on it, she said it's probably the only time that she was able to see a man's inspiration and hopes and dreams come to life. And that's the inspiration that we'd like to leave you with. It's looking out this window and seeing that lamp. That wherever you go, you're going to have your own inspiration for you. So as we leave the apartment here, Amanda and Courtney would like to hand out a Walt lamp pin for you as well to take with you. So that way you can have all of your own inspirations.